In this video, I'm going to show you 10 very interesting and common situations on the table, where we need to consider best possible way to create effective position for the 9 ball. For my considerations, I will use 3 options of positioning and determine which of them is in my opinion the best and gives the greatest benefits. And of course, as always, I will use helpful graphics to better understand what spin and speed apply to the cue ball to execute each shot correctly. So in this case, be sure to leave a thumbs up for me and hit the subscribe button to never miss any of my videos. The first example is a very common situation where the 4 ball is placed on the head spot, while the 9 ball is located on the foot spot. We have some angle on the 4 ball towards bottom half of the table, and at the first look it seems impossible to make mistake during this shot. In the easiest way, we need to hit the cue ball slightly below its center and use low speed to use one rail and leave the cue ball on the right side of the table. But we need to be very careful, because this shot required to hit long rail very close to the middle pocket, which generates high risk of scratching in this pocket if we apply wrong spin. In the second, better way, we need to create position for the 9 ball on the left side of the table after contacting 2 rails. This shot required to hit the cue ball with topspin and touch of right hand English to avoid scratching into the left middle pocket. So again, this shot generates some risk and require good understanding of speed and spin on the cue ball. But there is one more option where we need to make position for the 9 ball on the left side of the table again, but this time we are using 3 rails and going around the 9 ball. From these 3 options, this shot is the most difficult because we need to use more speed and spin, but we are going with the cue ball far away from the pockets, which decreases risk of scratching. The only thing we need to care about is to apply correct speed and spin to finish in optimal position for the 9 ball, so we should consider this option as the most promising one. In the second example, we encounter another very common situation where many beginners have difficulties to find best possible path for the cue ball to avoid problems. This time 9 ball is located on the foot spot again, while the 4 ball is placed very close to the long rail between first and second diamond. And very often players want to use only one rail and leave the cue ball on the right side of the table, but if we apply too little spin, then we can hit the 9 ball and lose position for this ball, or too much spin and then we end too high, very close to the long rail in uncomfortable position. To fix these problems, we can use another rail during positioning, but this time we need to be very careful because we can scratch in the middle pocket, so this shot has some risk. But there is second better way where we can avoid scratching by going with the cue ball far away from the pockets. This time we need to apply top left spin, and after contacting 3 rails we are making position for the 9 ball on the right side of the table. This shot is a bit more difficult than the previous one because we need to cover longer distance, but risk of scratching is much lower this time. And there is one more underrated option where we need to use only center ball and low speed to place the cue ball on the right side of the table to play 9 ball into the left middle pocket in next shot. In my opinion, this option is the best and gives us highest benefits because it is very repeatable. We are using low speed and hitting the cue ball at its center, so difficulty and risk is very low. In the following example, we face another very interesting situation where we need to play 4 ball from high angle, which is far away from the corner pocket, while the 9 ball is located on the bottom short rail. We need to manipulate cue ball's path again using side spin, and in the first option we want to place the cue ball on the right side of the table. This shot required to hit the cue ball with low speed and apply a lot of left hand English, and this generates a lot of risk because cue ball will curve due to applied spin and speed, so we may completely misjudge where to aim 4 ball. To fix problem with curve, we can use more speed to place the cue ball on the left side of the table after contacting 2 rails. There is much less risk than before, and the only difficulty is to find correct speed of the shot to end in correct place for the 9 ball. But again, there is one more option which gives us very high benefit, but this time we need to use most difficult path. This shot requires from us to apply very smooth backspin with bit of right hand English to cause the cue ball to go for the 9-ball around the table from the back. During this shot we follow very safe path far away from the pockets, what decreases risk of scratching. The last option is very repeatable, so I think you should consider this positioning as the most promising. In the fourth example, we encounter a very interesting situation where we need to play 4-ball from bit higher angle and make position for the 9-ball, which is located very close to the left long rail. The first option of positioning requires from us to use only one rail, so in this case we need to apply a lot of right hand English and hit the cue ball with low speed. But again, because we are using low speed, we face factor called curve, so it may be difficult to hit 4-ball in correct point. And additionally, it will be quite challenging to control speed of this shot to end in optimal position for the 9-ball. In the second, much better option, we are using two rails, and this time we need to apply low left spin and hit the cue ball with same speed like before. This shot is much more predictable than the previous one, and the only difficulty is to apply correct speed to avoid leaving the cue ball too high. But in my opinion, you should consider this option where I hit the cue ball at its center with medium speed to, after contact with three rails, create perfect position for the 9-ball. This shot gives you the best opportunity to make safe position for the 9-ball because we are not using side spin and we follow very safe path far away from the pockets. And the only thing we need to care about is speed of the shot to decrease distance between the cue ball and the 9-ball. And we need to finish the first half of this episode with this another very common situation where the 9-ball is located on the bottom short rail again, and we need to play 4-ball from some distance and very uncomfortable angle. The first option is very popular among beginners, and we need to apply low right spin to after contact with right long rail very close to the middle pocket and on the left side of the table. And this makes some risk during this shot because we need to use more speed and spin and hit long rail very close to the middle pocket, so we can easily scratch. We can fix these problems using less speed and spin, because during second option we can apply only top spin and medium speed to create position for the 9-ball on the right side of the table. But during this type of shot we need to be very careful because we are hitting from much higher angle and this generates higher difficulty. And there is one more option which is maybe more difficult than the previous ones, but this time we follow very safe path. We need to hit the cue ball slightly below its center with touch of left hand English to hit right long rail first and go around the table for the 9-ball to the right side of the table. We are using most complicated path, but in my opinion you should consider this shot as the most predictable with very high benefit. And we jump to the second part of this video where we need to pot 4-ball which is placed very close to the corner pocket and 9-ball is located on the foot spot. Cue ball is in the center area of the table and we have large angle on the 4-ball, which means that if we want to leave the cue ball on the left side of the table using only short rail, then we need to use very low speed, which generates a lot of risk that we miss 4-ball, because this shot requires high precision. But there is much better option and we can place the cue ball on the both sides of the 9-ball, but this time we need to use two rails. During this type of shot we have bit lower difficulty because we use more confident stroke, but there is high risk of scratching if we apply wrong spin. And additionally we need to control speed of this shot much better than before, because cue ball needs to cover longer distance and in many cases we can play too short or too long. And finally we face last and in my opinion best option, where this time we follow very safe path around the table using 4 rails. There is very low risk of scratching and we are using rails as brakes, and the only difficulty is to hit the cue ball with correct speed. We are using a very confident stroke with bit of right hand English to place the cue ball in perfect area on the right side of the table, very close to the straight line of the 9-ball, which makes this option worth to consider. In the next example we encounter another very interesting situation which may look very easy, but the reality is completely different. We need to play cut shot on the 4 ball, but the high angle on this ball makes it impossible to stay on the bottom side of the table if we try to use deep backspin and one rail because 9 ball is located right behind the 4 ball. We should avoid this option because we are leaving very high angle on the 9 ball, which makes it difficult to pot this ball. And this is another example where we can use 2 rails again and go up and down to place the cue ball on the left or right side of the table. But again, there is some risk that we can scratch in both top corner pockets, and additionally, we need to good understanding of speed to play with very high precision. But we can reduce risk of scratching to minimum using third option, where this time we need to apply bit of low left hand English to go around the table and create perfect position for the 9 ball on the right side of the table. We are using a very safe path and going far away from the pockets, and in my opinion, this is the shot you should consider as the best option. In the F example, we face another very common shot where we have very high angle on the 4 ball and 9 ball is located on the foot spot. The first option which we need to consider requires to leave the cue ball on the right side of the 9 ball, very close to the stride line of this ball. But we have very high angle on the 4 ball and it will be very challenging to kill speed of this shot. We can't use too little speed because cue ball needs to have enough power to pot 4 ball, but then it makes it difficult to stay on the right side of the table and generates some risk of scratching in the middle pocket. But we can fix this problem and try to place the cue ball on the opposite side of the table, because then we are hitting the cue ball using more confident stroke. But there is still some risk of scratching in the middle pocket if we hit 4 ball too thin or if we apply wrong spin. And I'm sure that you didn't consider the last option, where we are using most complicated path, but this time we reduce risk of scratching to minimum, and the only important thing is to apply correct spin and spin to the cue ball. We follow very original and safe path far away from the pockets, but we need to calculate deflection because we use a lot of English and hitting the cue ball with medium speed, but despite this, I'm sure that this option is worth to consider as the best one. Let's look at the ninth situation, where this time 9 ball is placed on foot spot again, and we need to play very long 4 ball from high angle. Object ball is located very close to the corner pocket, but with this type of angle it will be difficult if we try to slow roll the cue ball with bit of right hand English to create position for the 9 ball on the right side of the table. Because we are using low speed and touch of right hand English, this shot becomes very challenging. To avoid problems with curve and scratching, we can use more confident stroke by hitting the cue ball with low right hand English and medium speed. This time we need to use 2 or 3 rails to leave the cue ball on the left side of the table. We reduced risk of scratching, but this time we face deflection and need to play with high precision to leave the cue ball in comfortable place. And this is another situation where I have very original option, where this time we need to hit the cue ball with high speed and apply a lot of right hand English. Cue ball hits 4 rails and we can create perfect position for the 9 ball from behind. We are using very safe path far away from the pockets, and trust me that this option is very predictable and repeatable, and the only difficulty is to know how much we need to adjust our aiming due to deflection. And finally, at the very end of this episode, I left a very interesting and non-obvious situation, where we need to play 4 ball from very uncomfortable angle, while the 9 ball is located on the bottom short rail. If we try to pot 4 ball into the middle or corner pocket, then we are scratching in both scenarios, because cue ball follows the natural angle of this shot. So in this case, we need to manipulate cue ball's path, but this is not good option if we try to cut 4 ball into the middle pocket and use a lot of backspin to kill speed of the shot and stay in the bottom area of the table. This is impossible to execute this shot correctly because we face cut-induced throw factor, so in this case cue ball pushes the 4 ball to the outside, which results that in most cases we are missing this ball and cue ball ends very high without comfortable position for the 9 ball. So in this case, we need to use more speed and try to pot the 4-ball into the bottom corner pocket. We need to apply a lot of low right-hand English, which generates high difficulty, but during this shot we follow very safe path. This shot requires from us good understanding of deflection and high stroke quality to hit the cue ball with enough spin and speed to go around the table to create perfect position for the 9-ball from behind. But we can decrease difficulty and risk of this shot by using last method, where this time we need to pot 4-ball into the middle pocket and use 4 or 5 rails with very complicated path to land in perfect position for the 9-ball. And trust me that this method is the best in this situation, and it may look very difficult, but the reality is completely different. We are hitting the cue ball slightly below its center using very high speed to avoid scratching in the corner pocket, but this shot is very predictable and repeatable, and in my opinion you need to consider this option in your training to see good results. I hope you enjoyed this pool lesson with my detailed analysis of each situation, where sometimes we don't know what type of positioning we need to use to increase our chances to produce the highest benefits. If you like this video and you appreciate the quality of my content, then please consider leaving a thumbs up for me and hit the subscribe button to never miss any of my new videos. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next lesson. Take care!